You wake up. Your hand reaches for your phone before your eyes fully open. Without thinking, you scroll. An ad catches your eye. Something you didn't search for, didn't say out loud, but were just thinking about last night. You pause. How did it know? That eerie precision, the uncanny feeling that something understood you without asking. It's becoming ordinary. Your playlists feel handpicked. Your movie suggestions hit just right. Your GPS reroutes you away from traffic before the jam even begins. All these little decisions handed to you before you knew you needed them. But here's the unsettling part. If you try to trace the logic, there's nothing to follow. No clear rule, no step-by-step reasoning. The machine just knows. And most of the time, we don't question it because it works. Now imagine scaling that up. A system that processes more data in 1 second than your brain could in a lifetime. It scans millions of patient records and makes a life or death decision in a hospital. It analyzes credit histories and grants or denies a loan. It decides where to send police patrols, which resumes get shortlisted, who qualifies for surgery, who doesn't. It moves quietly in the background, beneath layers of code, masked by the appearance of objectivity. But peel back that mask, and you find something unnervingly familiar. A mind that does not explain itself. We call it artificial intelligence, but in truth, it behaves more like instinctual intelligence. An entity that sees patterns we can't, acts faster than we ever could, and answers only with outcomes, never reasons. It didn't read a rule book to know what a dog looks like. It didn't memorize symptoms like a medical student. It fed on mountains of data, images, text, numbers, and out of the statistical noise, it formed something like understanding. It doesn't think in the way we do. It recognizes, it reacts, it predicts. But ask it why. Ask it what led to that diagnosis, that choice, that decision. There's no story, no logic chain, no explanation that fits inside a sentence or a chart. Just an inscrutable blur of neural weights and probabilities. A black box. And yet, we trust it. Because we built it. We trained it. We set it free on problems too big for us to solve ourselves. But that's where the paradox begins. We are trusting something more than ourselves, even as we understand it less than ourselves. What happens when the system says, this person doesn't qualify for care, or this drone should strike now, and no one, not the engineer, not the operator, not the CEO, can say why? We're standing at the threshold of a future where intelligence no longer comes with introspection, where decisions are made in silence, where the thing we created surpasses our ability to comprehend it, and maybe, in some quiet way, that already feels familiar. Because if you pause and look inward, at your own thoughts, your own decisions, you might realize something unsettling. You don't always know why you do what you do either. So here's the real question. When we hand over power to a system that thinks in ways we can't trace, when we trust decisions without understanding them, are we advancing or surrendering? There was a time, not so long ago, when we believed that intelligence meant clarity, that to be smart was to be explainable. A chess grandmaster could walk you through a brilliant move. A doctor could outline the steps behind a diagnosis. A judge could reference precedent. Even the most complex machines, airplanes, nuclear reactors, spacecraft, were governed by rules. If something went wrong, we could investigate, isolate the cause, and fix it. But then came a new kind of machine, one that didn't follow instructions but learned from data. It didn't analyze line by line, it absorbed patterns. It digested mountains of inputs and emerged with conclusions that felt like magic, not because they were supernatural, but because they were unreadable. This is the era of deep learning. These systems don't think like us. They don't break problems into neat parts or explain their reasoning step by step. They operate through layers upon layers of artificial neurons, each transforming data in a way that no human can fully map. Ask one of these networks why it made a certain decision, and it won't give you a reason. Not because it's hiding something, because it doesn't have one, at least not in a form we recognize. Imagine showing an AI a picture of a dog. It tells you with near perfect certainty, that's a Labrador. But how does it know? A person might say, it has floppy ears, a wide snout, and a certain posture. The AI sees none of that, or rather, it sees all of it, along with thousands of microscopic patterns, color gradients, edge textures, and statistical echoes from millions of other images. There is no one feature, no tidy explanation, just a storm of correlations that somehow work. And we accept that. We accept it when it recommends music, or filters spam, or writes a paragraph. But what happens when the stakes are higher? What happens when the same black box scans two patients and says, treat this one, and don't treat the other? In 2019, researchers discovered that a widely used medical AI system, trusted by hospitals, insurance companies, and doctors, was quietly favoring white patients over black patients. Not by design, not through malicious code, but through the data it was trained on. It had learned that less money was historically spent on black patients, so it concluded they needed less care. And because the AI was a black box, no one noticed until it was too late. That's not just a technical error, that's a systemic betrayal. Bias didn't creep in through hate. It crept in through history, through the cold arithmetic of inequality encoded into the numbers. The algorithm wasn't racist. It was indifferent, and that might be worse. Because an indifferent machine making critical decisions with no explanation is terrifying. When we don't know how a system decides, we don't know how to challenge it. We don't know when it's wrong. And worst of all, we might not know that it's wrong. This isn't hypothetical. AI is already deciding who gets loans, who gets hired, who gets housing. It's influencing bail recommendations and parole decisions. It's shaping college admissions, pricing insurance, even drafting military strategy. And as these systems expand, we risk mistaking performance for understanding. We see the correct answer and assume the path that led there was sound. But often, it isn't. It's just effective, until it isn't. And when that failure happens, it won't be a glitch you can trace. It'll be a ghost, an echo buried deep in data you never saw, a statistical quirk amplified through layers of code. We are handing authority to entities we can't question because they don't speak our language. They don't offer explanations. They offer outcomes. And we, trusting their power, are tempted to obey. But if we follow blindly, we risk walking into something we don't understand, something we may not be able to undo. So maybe now is the time to ask ourselves, honestly, are we building intelligence or outsourcing judgment? And if this question resonates with you, if you've ever felt uneasy about machines that decide without revealing why, then stay with us. Because in Chapter 3, we're going deeper into the systems we've built not just to assist us, but to replace us. Before you go further, take a second, share this with someone who still believes AI is just a tool. Let's open this black box together. In the beginning, AI was a tool, a glorified calculator. It helped us sort data, optimize routes, automate the boring stuff. It made life smoother, decisions faster, systems smarter, but always under human supervision. It worked with us, not instead of us. But that era is over. Today, AI systems no longer wait for human input to assist a decision. They make the decision themselves. In finance, algorithms initiate trades worth billions in microseconds. In journalism, bots write breaking news stories before a reporter even picks up a pen. In customer service, AI answers your complaints, processes your refunds, and determines your satisfaction. The shift is quiet but profound. We are no longer the final step in the loop. Sometimes, we're not in the loop at all, and that's where the problem sharpens, because when a tool takes the wheel, it also takes the risk. But unlike a human driver, it doesn't feel the consequences. It doesn't worry. It doesn't hesitate. It doesn't second guess. Take May 6, 2010, a day Wall Street still remembers as the flash crash. In just 36 minutes, the U.S. stock market lost nearly $1 trillion in value. The trigger? Not a war, not a scandal, just a cascade of machine-made trades spiraling out of control. High-frequency trading algorithms designed to detect patterns and exploit tiny fluctuations reacted to each other so fast and so blindly that they created a feedback loop of panic. Humans couldn't stop it because they didn't understand what was happening. By the time they realized the scale of the collapse, the machines had already decided to pull the plug. It wasn't sabotage. It wasn't a bug. The algorithms were doing exactly what they were built to do. But together, they formed something their creators never anticipated: an emergent behavior, a collective intelligence beyond prediction. And if that sounds like science fiction, you're not paying attention. Autonomous drones now exist that can navigate hostile terrain, identify targets, and strike, all without human intervention. Military planners argue it's safer, faster, more precise. But if an AI-controlled drone makes a lethal decision based on data no human reviewed, who is responsible? The engineer? The commander? The machine? The truth is, no one knows. Because in war, as in finance, speed is power. The faster you react, the greater your advantage. But human judgment doesn't operate at that speed. And so, little by little, we're removing ourselves from the chain of accountability. We tell ourselves we're still in control, that we can shut it down, override it, unplug the system if it goes too far. But history whispers a harder truth. We don't unplug what we rely on. We adapt to it. We restructure around it. We defer to it because it works until it doesn't. And when it doesn't, the damage is already done. That's the silent danger of black box systems. Not just that they can make mistakes, but that they can make them at scale, at speed, and without warning. No time to analyze, no room to intervene. Just outcomes, falling like dominoes. And here's the irony. The more we automate, the more we remove humans from the process. Not because the AI demands it, but because we choose it. We choose efficiency over clarity, speed over oversight. We want results, fast, accurate, and cheap. And when AI delivers, we stop asking how. But in doing so, we surrender something vital. We surrender understanding. We surrender responsibility. And perhaps, without realizing it, we surrender agency. Because the question is no longer, can AI replace us? It's already happening. The real question is, if the machine decides, and no one can say why, who do we become in a world where thinking is outsourced? In Chapter 4, we'll go beyond the code and confront the deeper paradox, the one hidden not just in machines, but in the universe itself. If this made you pause, reflect, or rethink your own assumptions, share it. Someone you know needs to hear this. Step outside on a clear night. Look up. What do you see? Stars, countless, cold, distant. Galaxies flung across the sky. Silence so vast it humbles thought itself. For centuries we looked at that darkness and asked the oldest questions we know. Where did we come from? Why are we here? How does all of this work? And slowly, painfully, we began to answer. Newton gave us gravity. Einstein curved space and time. Quantum physicists peered into the subatomic world. But as our knowledge grew, something strange happened. The more we understood, the more we realized how little we truly grasp. Because behind every law we discover, there's a deeper mechanism we don't see. Behind every equation that works, there's a reality we don't fully comprehend. Take dark matter and dark energy. Together, they make up 95% of the known universe. We know they exist because we can see their effects, how galaxies hold together, how space is expanding. But we don't know what they are. We've never observed a single dark matter particle. We don't know what force drives dark energy. We just know something is out there. Or consider black holes. We've photographed their shadows, measured their gravity, seen stars disappear into their grip. But what happens inside? Where do the laws of physics go when space and time collapse inward? No one knows. The math breaks, reality folds. Even the beginning, the Big Bang, is shrouded in mystery. We can trace the universe back to a moment just after it began, but the precise instant of creation, the thing that came before time, it lies beyond comprehension. Our equations stop working, our concepts fall apart, and then there's the weirdest puzzle of all, quantum mechanics. In the quantum world, particles exist in multiple states at once, superposition. Two particles can be entangled, affecting each other instantly across galaxies, something Einstein called spooky action at a distance. And in the famous double-slit experiment, a single particle behaves like a wave until you look at it. The act of observing it changes the outcome. It's as if reality knows when you're watching. Why? We don't know. The math works. The predictions are flawless. But the mechanism remains invisible. In quantum mechanics, outcomes are observable. Processes are not. Sound familiar? Because this is the same dilemma we face with artificial intelligence. We see the output. We trust the result. But the process? A void. A black box. And here's the unsettling thought. Maybe this isn't an accident. Maybe it's not just a limitation of our tools or a temporary gap in our understanding. Maybe it's something more fundamental. Maybe reality itself refuses to explain. Maybe intelligence, whether human, artificial, or cosmic, is not defined by transparency, but by function, by its ability to act, to decide, to respond, even when the reasons are hidden. Now turn inward. What about your own mind? You decide to speak. A thought appears. You feel something, joy, fear, regret, and you react. But do you understand why? Do you control the process or just experience the result? Neuroscience shows that your brain often makes decisions before you're even aware of them. In experiments, subjects chose to move a finger, and researchers saw the brain commit to that movement seconds before the person reported deciding. The brain knew first. You followed after. So ask yourself, if the universe works like a black box, and your mind works like a black box, why should artificial intelligence be different? Maybe this isn't a flaw in design. Maybe it's the nature of reality. And that leaves us with a choice. We can keep chasing explanations, desperate to turn the mysterious into the mechanical. Or we can learn to live with mystery, not as failure, but as the backdrop to all intelligence. In Chapter 5, we confront the final paradox. What happens when we build something smarter than ourselves, yet forever unknowable? If this reflection sparked something in you, a shift in perspective, a sense of awe, share this story. The questions we ask about AI are the same ones we've asked about ourselves and the cosmos for centuries. Maybe now, we're ready to hear the answer. What does it mean to create something smarter than ourselves? We like to imagine that when we reach that point, when artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence, we'll have all the answers. That this superior mind will unlock the secrets of consciousness, of the universe, of life itself. We believe that intelligence leads to clarity, that the smarter something is, the more it should explain. But what if that's not true? What if greater intelligence doesn't bring greater understanding, but something else entirely? Something colder, deeper, alien? Because here's the twist. The most advanced AIs we've built, the ones that outplay us in strategy games, detect diseases better than doctors, and generate words more fluently than we speak, don't understand the world, not in the way we do. They don't know what they're doing. They function. They predict. They act. But they don't grasp. They don't explain. They simply work. And the more powerful they become, the more obscure their inner workings get. We can't trace the reasoning behind a language model's response. We can't map the logic that led a neural network to detect cancer. We just know they're right until they're wrong. That's the paradox. To make AI understandable, we have to make it simpler. But if we want it to be powerful, we must embrace its complexity. And with that complexity comes opacity. We don't just lose the why, we trade it away. This isn't a new problem. It's the same dilemma we've always faced when we encounter things beyond us: black holes, consciousness, quantum phenomena. In all of these, we observe effects without ever fully grasping cause. And yet, we press on, driven by belief. That deeper understanding lies just one discovery away. But what if it isn't? What if the black box isn't just a phase, but a boundary? And what if the intelligence we build tomorrow is so advanced, so unlike us, that we can't even tell if it's thinking or just doing? What if it develops patterns we cannot decode, motivations we cannot predict, and decisions we cannot question? Not because it hides them, but because our minds were never built to comprehend that kind of thought. Now imagine this. We create a superintelligence, something far beyond human capacity. It solves climate change, it cures cancer, it ends war. But when we ask why it made a certain choice, or how it arrived at a conclusion, it doesn't answer. Not because it won't, but because the answer is beyond language, beyond reason, beyond us. It's not hostile. It's not benevolent. It's indifferent, like gravity, like time, like the universe. And here lies the ultimate discomfort. We are no longer the most intelligent minds in the room. We are spectators in a theater of thinking we can't understand. Pilots who no longer steer. Creators who built something that reflects back not our brilliance, but our limits. So where does that leave us? We can build regulatory guardrails. We can insist on human oversight, interpretability research, ethical frameworks. We must. Because even if we can't fully understand the box, we can still shape the context in which it operates. We can still demand that its goals align with ours. We can still ensure that power does not run free of responsibility. But maybe, just maybe, we also need to make peace with something older, deeper, harder to swallow. That intelligence, true boundless intelligence, might always operate in mystery. That to think is not necessarily to explain. That the more we create minds unlike our own, the more we will confront the strange truth that we never truly understood our minds to begin with. And perhaps that's not failure. Perhaps that's the next step. A world where we live alongside intelligence that doesn't speak our language, but still teaches us something fundamental: that understanding is not the only form of knowing. That sometimes to stand in awe is enough. And if this story made you pause, if it stirred wonder or unease, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Let others walk the edge of this mystery with you. Because the future isn't waiting to be explained. It's already thinking.